Women making money is the ultimate form of activism. Let's dive right in. We still live in a systematically oppressive system. Let's be real, we live in the framework of capitalism, racism, and patriarchy. All right? So, this concept is from a woman called Julia Shaw. Julia Shaw, I want to shout you out. I am not stealing this. I definitely want to give you your flowers. The biggest framework we need to understand, especially as women of the global majority, multicultural women of color, we need to understand what the world that we live in actually consists of, and we need to understand that it's interconnected. It's not just one, it's all three: capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, and class, right? Capitalism is also class because there is a hierarchy through the accumulation of wealth. Okay, so all of these systems are man made, right? These are man made power dynamics, man made power structures. This is the first thing we need to understand if we are seeking true liberation. And I do believe that this is what the human spirit seeks: true, full liberation inside this system, because we're here, right? I say we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and yes, we have a human experience. So it's important to understand this system, that nobody gets away. Like, we all live in that. That is the water that we swim in. I go deeper into this concept inside the original method in phase two, because we cannot move through this world without understanding how people see us, prejudice, right? How the world works and what we need to focus on. And this is what I want to talk to you about today, because we cannot do anything about our race. We cannot do anything about our skin color, right? There are nuances. People try to do that, but more or less, that is something that is fixed. The same thing with your gender, more or less. Okay, we live in a world where many things are possible now, but more or less, we live in a patriarchal society. And if we are women, that means that we are automatically disadvantaged. That's just facts. And we live in capitalism. The only thing that we can really do here is to make the best of ourselves, which I also see in correlation with our divine mission, right? Again, for me, divinity and capitalism goes hand in hand, because we're seeking true liberation as a soul inside the system. Capitalism is not going anywhere anytime soon. Maybe the old forms of money are going away, right? Paper money, but the concept of resources and accumulating resources is not going anywhere soon. So we need to understand that as women of the global majority, multicultural women, women of color, women, we have to understand that we need to focus on money. Not only money, we need to seek true liberation, meaning to get rid of the internalized oppressive ideas that the world has tried to implant, or not only tried, the world has implanted this way of seeing oneself. Not only the world, but seeing oneself for centuries. That means racism is deeply rooted in indigenous cultures. In, like, I always like to say, this is my personal life experience. I come from a Ghanaian father and a German mother. So my dad is Ghanaian. He came to Germany seeking a better life in Europe. So that means he already thought Europe is the best place. He sought out a white woman. He knew, like, that's his level up, right? So all of these racist structures influenced him to come to Europe and to seek out a German wife. All right? No shade, it is what it is, but that is part of his mindset. And with my mother, she's a white woman. She has always worked, and I see with her also tendencies of pedestalizing men, right? This is the patriarchal system that she grew up. Also, some ways of moving through the world. And it's not only my mother, it's just an example that this is where I come from. And this is true for many, many other people, women in this world, right? People, even me, we as women of color, we have to do the work to get rid of those internalized misogynistic thoughts about ourselves, hating ourselves because of our gender, because of our emotionality, maybe because of our nature, and the same thing about our skin color, our ethnicity, our phenotype, right? All of these things are internalized self-hate inflicted by this power structure. That is the first thing that we need to understand. This system is built on exploitation, right? The few at the top exploit everyone at the bottom, right? The money always flows to those in power, right? Extracting energy, not only money, because money is energy. We spoke about that before. The people, the masses have the power. Money is power. What is power? Power is life force. Yeah. Power is life force, and people who have life force labor, right? Labor. People who work, they create the money, like a little bit of money. They create the money, and then they have to pay all of the money either to the the taxes, right? Like they pay taxes, they pay rent, they pay all of the things. Like, right? That's what the system is all about. And then if you are a true victim or a true slave to the system without any financial literacy, you will be a consumer. That's the thing. Consumer. And consumers spend all their money on unnecessary things, on consumer goods, right? Just playing the game, being part of the rat race, consuming without empowering yourself to become a creator in the game, right? Okay, so that is a system based on extraction. That is this power hierarchy. All right, so all of the energy, all of the life force goes up. They become more and more. People die off, are unhealthy, just sick, and die. All right, very brutal, very, very crude, but just to get to the point, right? Because I want to talk about the liberation strategy, okay? So, first of all, we need to understand we have all been infiltrated by these mindsets because it is the water that we swim in, as I always like to say. It is the water that we all swim in. And the analogy goes that the fish in the water never knows that it's in water. It's so invisible to the fish. It's so normal, natural to the fish that it doesn't even know that this is water. And that's the same thing for us. If we don't start to question everything, yeah, if we don't start to question everything, this is when the true self-empowerment journey begins. All right, so we liberate ourselves from the oppression and realize that we are sovereign beings, that we have agency over our lives, and it starts with liberating the mind and decolonizing the body. One of the things, especially for women, is the topic of unpaid labor. The whole point that I'm making in this video is that only a woman who makes money is a woman that is free, is a woman that is free. Never ultimate freedom. I don't know if there is ultimate freedom in this system, but freedom is about liberating yourself from the oppressive mindset of your race and your gender, but then also making money. And a woman that is truly empowered is a holistically educated woman. Not only educated through the system, because there is a saying, and I don't know if I can get it together, but the tools of the master will not give you like the freedom in the master's house or something like that, right? That is the master's house, the CPR system, and they give you, or they gave us all, a certain kind of education that didn't make us become free. Yeah. So holistically educated means for me to go beyond what you learned inside the system. And the higher you go into the higher institutions of learning, like the very good universities, the elite universities, or even investing, something like me, investing into working with liberated people, with mentors. I believe holistic education is about the earth, right? Is about really natural, universal principles. I didn't only study international business, I also studied holistic nutrition and health, right? And how we live in an ecosystem, right? What is true health? How we are connected to the earth, the food, the minerals that we need, all of that, more of a universal mindset. And then I studied intensely universal principles and prosperity principles, right? Prosperity, again, is a natural principle. It is natural. That is what we are returning back to if you work with me. But I also believe that this is where the awakened people are going, is returning to natural law and natural principle, because this is what results into true prosperity. Okay, so a holistically educated woman is already a threat to the system, because the system has tried to indoctrinate you with a certain frame of mind that makes you diminish yourself, see yourself as less than, see yourself as incapable. But then if you empower yourself through a holistic, larger, deconstructed, decolonized, natural principle mindset, you are already a glitch in the matrix. Then, when you learn to build skills, high in demand skills like leadership skills, we're still in the leadership series. This is for my leaders, right? Communication skills, psychology, human nature, philosophy, ethics, right? Leading people, structure, system, speaking, coding, content creation, right? Everything where the world is going, technology, but also going back to nature, farming, agriculture, processing raw materials. There are so many skills I believe that we're going back to. But if you're learning something, true skill, sales is a skill. It is communication, it is human nature, it is psychology, making people move, right? Making people start a succession of change, right? That is a skill. Holistically educated, having a skill, and then, as I already said, selling your skill to the marketplace, creating a marketplace position for you. That is also what I do. That is what I'm about. If you want to do that, that's what the original method is about. To see yourself as a service provider, as a valuable creator, contributor to a holistic world global marketplace, right? And having a brand, a personal brand that is your reputation and that you can sell to different clients. And I say an employer, a collaborator, all of those other people is a second party. They are your clients, right? So that is what we do. And we sell to those who can afford our expertise. We sell to those who are willing to pay our price. And that is how you can truly get a leg up in this systemically oppressive system, by finding your worth, liberating yourself from internalized misogyny and racism, and building your skills and selling your skills to a marketplace of people that are willing and able to pay your prices. That is true liberation, not only mental, but it needs to result in financial liberation because we live in the system where everything needs to be paid for. For me personally, this is also true feminism because, again, feminism is about the liberation of the woman, right? It needs to be rooted in capitalism as well. Because if you feel free, but if you don't have any power, you're still powerless. And that is the beginning of true systemic change, right? People in the coaching industry like to call it being the glitch in the matrix. Like, this sounds super fancy, but I think it's better to break it down what the matrix actually is, and that is the matrix. The matrix is a prison, right? The matrix is a prison, and you can only break out if you deconstruct these stories that we have been swimming in for centuries. And this is also something where I say this is learning to break generational curses, because your father has believed some part of it, your mother has believed some part of it, right? And generations before you, depending on where you come from. So this is inherited even. So that is the true work, the true liberation work that you as a woman of the global majority need to do in order to get a leg up to be on the path of true liberation. This ties into where we are going. It doesn't only begin with you. It is tied into a collective ripple effect. And this is the time that we are in right now. We're moving towards a collective liberation, but it can only happen through one person at a time. You have to take responsibility for your liberation, for your empowerment by doing the inner work. Again, if you feel called, come over into my sanctuary. This is where I offer the programs that help you to get to this liberated space on all levels, including the financial aspect. Because a liberated woman becomes a rich woman with the right skills, and that is sales, personal branding, right? You become a rich woman, and a rich, empowered, liberated woman is a woman who empowers other women to do the same. That's what we're here for. As I always say, I don't create followers, I create leaders, because I know that I need to empower, give another woman the same tools that I receive to build my own castle. Like, she has to apply that to build her own freedom, and then another woman, and then another woman, and then another woman, and then another woman. That is where we're heading. It's no longer about, okay, I am here at the top of the hierarchy, because that is just perpetuating a system of exploitation. Because if I don't empower you to come up here, what am I doing? Probably exploiting you. All right. So if I give you the tools so you can liberate yourself to come up as well, and then this whole system changes, right? I'm not gonna like erase that, but the whole system goes towards a collective, more of a circular system, right? No longer this pyramid, but that is the vision for the future. But that's where we are heading, right? A liberated woman will empower another woman to liberate herself. Liberation is threatened by two archetypes, as I like to say. Number one is the woman who sees an empowered woman as a threat, and that is still very common. A woman that gets triggered by a sovereign woman, a woman that gets triggered by the power, the health, the sovereignty, the agency, the confidence of a liberated woman, right? So if you are on your path of liberation, liberating yourself, because you know that only when you're liberated, you can also help other women climb up on that path, there will be a saboteur. And that saboteur is another woman who, instead of finding and seeking and building her own personal power, will attack the woman on her path to liberation by envy, jealousy, smear campaigns, like all of the negativity. There's a lot of content around that. I'm not going to dive into that because this topic is covered, but that is a real thing, and you have to guard yourself against that. And of course, the number one threat is a man that feels threatened by a liberated, empowered woman, even though a woman's liberation is not about taking down a man, a woman's liberation is about her being free. Her being free, her being sovereign, her being empowered. But men that feel threatened and intimidated by a liberated woman are mostly men that feel the fear of losing control and then enforce laws and actions that take this woman down again. And this is what we see in politics on the highest level of capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, where the threatened men in power structures, which can be at the top of the ladder in political, in office, in law enforcement, and all of that, feel triggered by the liberation of the empowered woman of color and will enforce new laws to keep her down. And that happens from top to bottom. From the household, where men keep their women down, want to stay in control, not empower her to be all of who she can be, to bloom, to blossom into liberation. Those two archetypes are the biggest threats, right? Women who feel threatened by other free, empowered women, and men who feel threatened. And I say the men is the even bigger threat because the man most likely has more power, right? Even on the lowest level, the man has true physical power, and on the highest level, men have the guns and the all of the things where they can enforce their own laws to control and keep this woman on the mission to liberate herself down. So the true work that needs to be done with everybody, everyone, is the internalized work, the work of freeing yourself from internalized classism, patriarchy, and misogyny, right? Like the hate for women's liberation, the hate for women's freedom, the hate for the uncontrollable free woman, and of course, the hate for indigenous, brown, women of color, right? That is the true work that every leader needs to do, starting with you, to get rid of the internalized oppressive systems, because this doesn't only happen outside. If you have internalized racism, I spoke about that in the beginning of the video, you suppress your own more indigenous side, right? You suppress it to survive in the system. If you are a woman, and we see that more and more coming up, like women speaking about the period and what it does and how we function, and that we are not as productive as men, that we have a different productivity cycle, right? That is the liberation of the feminine, right? And then the next level is, how can a woman find a way to create value in this system? All right, so that is the true work that we need to do. We are here, you're a leader, you are a woman on her path to full liberation and reclamation of her personal sovereignty and power by, again, deconditioning yourself from all of the oppressive self-hate and come into divine alignment of your true natural power. That is true activism, as I said. Like, a woman making money is the glitch in the matrix and is the change of the oppressive system. That is a more systematic approach to the rise of the divine feminine, because we need to go about it in a systematic way. So if you want to empower yourself, if you want to find what are your power, like what is your value, what is your true contribution, your talents, your skills, you bring experience, the expertise. How can we package that in a cohesive personal brand into offers, into aligned leadership where you can do ethical sales and contribute to the lives of others by giving your value, by giving your expertise? That is my work, like really at the practical level of a true collective shift. So I'm looking forward to see you in the comments. Let me know what you think. I'm looking forward to see you in the original sanctuary. And if you really feel called to work with me one-on-one or in the next group cohort, write me or book a session for an aligned level up call. And yeah, let's talk. Let's do this work that is true leadership that can impact not only your life, but all of the women's life and all of the men's lives and your children's lives, and also the next generations. Like, we are legacy thinking. All right. So I'm looking forward to see you in the next one. And until then, don't forget that you are a force of nature. So I'm looking forward to see you act like it. And acting like it means taking action, taking a step. Don't just consume, don't just get inspired. Do something about it right now. All right. See you in the next one. Bye.